16-year-old Jamal Carter sat dazed in his airplane seat, cheek blazing from a brutal slap by Victor Hensley, a white businessman, as 200 passengers gaped in horror. Blood dripped from his split lip when Elias Novak, a weathered stranger, 10 rows back, stood and barked, "You'll regret that." Everyone expected a fight, but the plane lurched violently, lights blinked out and screams erupted. A simple flight to Dallas for Jamal's debate finals had twisted into a racial nightmare that would scar his future. What would happen next? Before we dive in, let us know where you're watching from. If you stand for justice against hate, hit like and subscribe for more gripping tales of courage and comeback. Jamal Carter adjusted his backpack straps as he shuffled through the bustling Seattle-Tacoma International Airport, his sneakers squeaking on the polished floor. At 16, he was a lanky kid with sharp eyes and a sharper mind, the kind of teenager who could recite Supreme Court rulings like song lyrics. His destination was Dallas, where the National Debate Championships awaited, a shot at a scholarship that could catapult him from his modest Tacoma neighborhood to a law school lecture hall. His mom, a single nurse who worked double shifts, had hugged him tight that morning, her voice thick with pride. "You're gonna show him, baby. Make him see what I see." Jamal clutched his debate notes, a thick stack of papers covered in his meticulous handwriting, and boarded Flight 819 with a mix of nerves and determination. He wore a faded hoodie and jeans, nothing flashy, but his posture screamed purpose. The plane, a sleek Boeing packed with 200 souls, hummed as it filled with passengers, business types in suits, families with restless kids, and a few loners lost in their headphones. Jamal found his seat, 14B, the middle spot in a row of 3, and slid his backpack under the chair in front. He settled in, flipping through his notes on affirmative action, mentally rehearsing his opening argument. The window seat held a quiet college girl with a sketchbook, her pencil scratching softly, while the aisle seat remained empty until the last boarding call. That's when Victor Hensley swaggered aboard. 52, broad-shouldered, and reeking of cologne. Victor was a real estate mogul from Dallas with a tailored suit and a Rolex that glinted under the cabin lights. His blonde hair was slicked back, his face flushed from a pre-flight whiskey at the terminal bar. He carried a leather briefcase and a smirk that said he owned the world. When he spotted Jamal in the middle seat, his lips twitched downward, a flicker of disdain crossing his blue eyes. "Should have stayed in, coach," he muttered, loud enough for Jamal to hear but soft enough to dodge a direct challenge. Jamal's jaw tightened, but he kept his gaze on his notes, breathing slow. He'd heard worse, felt worse, growing up black in a neighborhood where cops patrolled like it was a war zone. Victor plopped into the aisle seat, his elbow claiming the armrest, like territory in a conquest. The college girl glanced up, then back down, sensing the brewing storm but staying out of it. The plane taxied, engines roaring, and lifted off into the gray Washington sky, climbing to 36,000 feet. For the first hour, it was uneventful. Jamal scribbled annotations, Victor tapped on his tablet, and the girl sketched a dragon, curling around a tower. Then came the drink service. A flight attendant with a tight bun and a practiced smile rolled the cart down the aisle, her voice chirpy. "Water, soda, coffee." Jamal asked for water, no ice, and she handed him a plastic cup, cool against his palm. Victor ordered a scotch, neat, and downed it in 2 gulps, his throat bobbing. The attendant moved on, and Victor shifted, his elbow jutting into Jamal's space. Jamal edged away, keeping his cup steady, but Victor's next move wasn't subtle. He reached across to adjust his briefcase, and his arm accidentally knocked Jamal's water, sending it splashing into the teenager's lap. Cold liquid soaked through his jeans, pooling on the seat. Jamal jolted, his notes slipping to the floor, and he snapped, "Hey, watch it." Victor turned, his face a mask of mock surprise, then sneered, "Oh, relax, kid. It's just water. You'll dry." The college girl peeked over her sketchbook, eyes wide, but said nothing. Jamal's chest burned, a familiar anger bubbling up, the kind he'd swallowed 100 times before. He leaned down to grab his soggy notes, wiping them on his sleeve, and muttered, "You could have said sorry." Victor's laugh was sharp, cutting through the hum of the engines. "Sorry? For what? You shouldn't have been in my way." His voice carried a drawl, thick with entitlement, and Jamal felt the weight of every stare in the cabin shift toward them. A woman in the row ahead peeked back, her phone already angled to record. Jamal straightened, his voice low but firm. "I'm not in your way. I'm just sitting here." Victor's eyes narrowed, his lips curling into something uglier. "Sitting here, huh? Maybe you ought to know your place, kid." The words landed like a punch, heavy with history, dripping with venom. Jamal's hands clenched, his nails digging into his palms, but he held his tongue, knowing the trap. He'd been taught this dance. Stay calm. Don't escalate. Don't give them an excuse. His mom's voice echoed in his head. "They'll twist it, Jamal. Always do." The cabin grew quieter, the tension thickening like fog. Victor leaned closer, his breath sour with scotch, and hissed, "You hearing me, boy?" That was the spark. Jamal's restraint snapped, not into a shout, but a cold, deliberate reply. "I hear you. I just don't care." Victor's face flushed crimson, a vein pulsing in his temple. He reared back, his hand rising fast, and before Jamal could flinch, it cracked across his cheek with a sound like a whip. The slap echoed, sharp and brutal, silencing the plane. Jamal's head snapped sideways, pain exploding across his face, a trickle of blood seeping from his lip where a ring on Victor's finger had caught skin. 200 passengers froze, a collective gasp sucking the air from the cabin. The college girl dropped her pencil, her mouth open. Phones lifted higher, red dots blinking as they captured the outrage. Jamal touched his cheek, stunned, his vision blurring with shock and humiliation. Victor loomed over him, trembling with rage, his manicured finger jabbing an inch from Jamal's nose. "Know your place, kid," he spat, his voice a snarl. "Next time, it won't be just a slap." The threat hung there, toxic and suffocating, a promise of worse to come. For a moment, no one moved, the scene locked in a sickening stillness. Flight attendants stirred at the front, their hurried steps clicking down the aisle, but they were too far, too slow. Jamal's heart hammered, his mind racing. Fight back, run, scream. He was trapped, pinned by Victor's bulk in the eyes of strangers who saw him as the problem, not the victim. Then, from 10 rows back, a chair creaked. A man stood, his silhouette cutting through the dim cabin light. Elias Novak, 58, grizzled and lean, rose with a limp that spoke of old injuries. His face was weathered, etched with scars from a life of hard choices, his salt and pepper hair cropped short. He wore a faded jacket and carried no bag, just a presence that demanded attention. His eyes, pale and piercing, locked on Victor with a quiet fury that chilled the air. He took a step forward, his voice low but resonant, slicing through the silence. "Touch him again, and you're done." The words weren't loud, but they carried a weight that made Victor flinch, his hand hovering mid-air. Jamal blinked, hope flickering in his chest, a stranger stepping into the fire he'd been burning in alone. The college girl exhaled, her sketchbook trembling in her lap. Passengers shifted, some leaning forward, others shrinking back, unsure if this was salvation or escalation. Victor's smirk faltered, his bravado cracking under Elias's stare, but he didn't sit. He squared his shoulders, puffing up, ready to double down. The flight attendants were closer now, their voices sharp with protocol. "Sir, please everyone, stay seated." But Elias didn't budge, and neither did Victor. Jamal wiped the blood from his lip, his cheek throbbing, and met Elias's gaze for a split second. There was something there, a promise, a lifeline, but before it could solidify, the plane jolted hard, a sickening lurch that threw everyone off balance. Lights flickered, oxygen masks dangled, and a chorus of screams erupted. The cabin plunged into chaos, and Jamal's fleeting hope drowned in the noise. Victor stumbled, grabbing the seat, his eyes darting between Elias and the shaking floor. Elias braced himself, unflinching, his focus still locked on the man who'd struck a kid for daring to exist. The slap wasn't the end, Jamal realized, his stomach twisting. It was just the beginning. The plane shuddered again, a violent hiccup at 36,000 feet, and Jamal Carter gripped his armrests, his cheek still pulsing from Victor Hensley's slap. The cabin lights buzzed back to life, casting harsh shadows over the stunned faces of 200 passengers, their phones still raised like tiny torches in a dark cave. Jamal's lips stung where blood had crusted, his damp jeans clinging to his thighs from the spilled water, but his eyes darted to Elias Novak, the scarred stranger who'd risen like a ghost from 10 rows back. Elias shoved through the aisle, his limp barely slowing him, his faded jacket flapping as he closed the gap to row 14. His presence was a wall of quiet menace, and when he reached Victor, he didn't hesitate. With one calloused hand, he seized the businessman's collar, yanking him back from Jamal and pinning him against the seat. "Touch him again, and you're done," Elias growled, his voice a low rumble that cut through the fading screams. Victor's face drained of color, his tailored suit wrinkling under Elias's grip, his Rolex catching the light as he flailed. "Let go of me, you lunatic," he sputtered, his earlier swagger crumbling into a stammered mess. "I'm sorry, okay? It was a mistake." Jamal's heart pounded, a wild mix of relief and disbelief flooding his chest. Was this it? Could a stranger's stand actually stop the nightmare that had erupted mid-flight? The college girl beside him, her sketchbook clutched tight, whispered, "He's got guts," her voice trembling with awe. Passengers murmured, some nodding, others still filming, their screens capturing Elias as a reluctant hero. Flight attendants burst into the fray, their navy uniforms crisp, but their faces flustered. "Sir, release him now," one demanded. A petite woman with a clipboard, while another, a tall guy with a buzz cut, hovered behind, radio crackling. Elias held firm for a heartbeat longer, his pale eyes boring into Victor's, then loosened his grip, stepping back with hands raised. "Just making a point," he said, calm as stone. Victor slumped, smoothing his tie, his breath ragged but his smirk creeping back. Jamal exhaled, thinking maybe, just maybe, the worst was over. Could a single act of defiance really turn the tide against a man like Victor? The attendants swarmed, ushering Elias to his seat, their voices sharp with protocol, but the damage was done. Victor's apology hung in the air, a flimsy shield, and Jamal dared to hope justice might stick. His mom always said, "Right fines, away." And for a fleeting moment, it felt true. But then the storm shifted. From across the aisle, a burly man in a flannel shirt lurched to his feet, his voice booming over the hum of the engines. "That kid started it," Roy bellowed, pointing a meaty finger at Jamal. "He was mouthing off, shoving that guy around. I saw it all." The lie hit like a sucker punch, twisting the truth into something grotesque. Jamal's jaw dropped, his mind reeling, shoving, mouthing off. He'd barely raised his voice, let alone touched Victor. The college girl frowned, her pencil hovering, but stayed silent, her courage faltering. Passengers turned, their gazes hardening, suspicion replacing shock. "What's he talking about?" A woman in a red scarf muttered, her phone dipping as she squinted at Jamal. "Didn't look like that to me," a guy with headphones countered, but his voice was drowned by Roy's next shout. "Check the footage. He's trouble." The flight attendants paused, uncertainty flickering in their eyes. Victor seized the moment, his smirk widening as he leaned toward Roy, whispering something Jamal couldn't catch. What was he planning? How could a slap turn into this? Seconds later, a ripple spread through the cabin, phones pinged, screens lit up, and a grainy video looped among passengers, passed from seat to seat like a virus. Jamal craned his neck, catching a glimpse over a businessman's shoulder. The clip, barely 30 seconds, showed him leaning toward Victor, his arm raised, edited to look like he'd swung first. The slap followed, framed as self-defense. Gasps turned to whispers, then to glares. "That's not what happened," Jamal blurted, his voice cracking, but the damage was done. Who'd doctored it? How had they moved so fast? Victor's eyes glinted with triumph, his earlier panic replaced by a predator's calm. Elias twisted in his seat, 10 rows back, his scarred face darkening as he saw the shift. "That's a lie," he called, but the buzz of the crowd swallowed his words. The tall attendant glanced at the clipboard woman, who nodded hesitantly. "We'll sort this out," she said, her tone clipped, but her eyes lingered on Jamal, not Victor. The tide had turned, and Jamal felt it, a cold wave of isolation, crashing over him. Could the truth drown in a sea of edited lies? Roy folded his arms, grinning like he'd won a prize, while Victor adjusted his cufflinks, his apology forgotten. The plane steadied, the turbulence fading, but the chaos inside grew thicker, more suffocating. Jamal's debate notes lay crumpled at his feet, his dreams teetering as passengers judged him through their screens. What kind of world let a slap become his fault? Hey viewers, what do you think? Comment number 1. If you're raging at how quick people believe that fake video over Jamal's truth, hit like if you're rooting for him to fight back, and subscribe to see if justice can claw its way out of this mess. Imagine you're on that plane, watching lies spread faster than wildfire. What would you do? Stick around, because the next twist is coming, and it's a gut punch you won't see coming. How far will Victor go to bury Jamal for good? The plane jolted one last time, a final shudder that rattled the overhead bins, then settled into an eerie calm at 36,000 feet. Jamal Carter sat rigid in seat 14B, his cheek throbbing from Victor Hensley's slap, his damp jeans cold against his skin, and his debate notes a soggy mess at his feet. The cabin buzzed with whispers, passengers scrolling through the fake video that painted him as the aggressor, their eyes flicking toward him with suspicion and disgust. The college girl beside him clutched her sketchbook, her pencil still, her silence a wall he couldn't breach. Elias Novak, 10 rows back, strained against the flight attendant's orders to stay seated, his scarred face tight with frustration, but the distance kept him powerless. Victor, slouched in the aisle seat, adjusted his tie, his smirk a razor's edge as he watched the chaos he'd sown take root. The air felt thick, suffocating. Every breath Jamal took laced with the weight of 200 stares. Could he claw his way out of this? The tall flight attendant with the buzz cut approached, his radio crackling, his expression unreadable. "Everyone please stay calm," he said, but his gaze lingered on Jamal, heavy with doubt. The clipboard woman trailed behind, her lips pursed, clutching a passenger manifest like a shield. Before Jamal could speak, Victor leaned forward, his voice oily and low. "You'll pay for embarrassing me," he hissed, his breath hot with scotch and malice. Jamal's stomach twisted, the threat sinking in like a blade. What did he mean? How could this get worse? Victor's eyes darted to Roy, the burly liar across the aisle who nodded subtly, a conspirator's grin splitting his face. Roy reached into his flannel pocket, pulled out a crumpled napkin and scribbled something fast, his thick fingers smudging the ink. He folded it tight and flagged down the clipboard woman, his voice booming with fake urgency. "Hey, miss, you need to see this." She hesitated, then took the note, her eyes scanning it quick. Her face tightened, and she whispered to the tall attendant, who nodded grimly. Jamal caught a glimpse of the words weapon and threat before the napkin vanished into her pocket. His heart slammed against his ribs. A weapon? Him? He'd never even held a knife outside his mom's kitchen. The attendant stepped closer, their posture shifting from neutral to guarded. "Sir," the tall one said, addressing Jamal, "we need you to stand up and come with us." His tone was firm, no room for argument, his hand resting near his belt like he expected trouble. Jamal blinked, his mind racing. "What? Why? I didn't do anything." His voice cracked, desperation seeping through, but the passengers around him leaned in, hungry for drama. The woman in the red scarf muttered, "Typical," her phone still recording, while the headphone guy frowned but stayed silent. Victor folded his arms, his smirk widening into a full-on grin, his victory unfolding in real time. The clipboard woman held up a hand. "We've had a report of a safety concern. We're searching your bag and your person. Please cooperate." Jamal stood, his legs shaky, and lifted his backpack from under the seat. "Go ahead, look. There's nothing there." The tall attendant unzipped it, rifling through debate notes, a hoodie, a water bottle, his movements methodical but tense. The cabin watched, breath held, as he pulled out a pen, then set it aside. Nothing. No knife, no gun, no threat. Jamal's Shoulders sagged, relief washing over him. "See? It's a lie," he said, pointing at Roy. "He made it up." But the attendants didn't relax. The clipboard woman exchanged a look with her partner, then said, "We're moving you to the rear for the rest of the flight. Standard procedure." Before Jamal could protest, the tall one pulled out a pair of plastic handcuffs, the kind they kept for emergencies, and snapped them around Jamal's wrists. The click echoed, louder than the engines, a sound that carved itself into his memory. "For safety," the attendant added, his voice flat, but his eyes avoided Jamal's. Passengers gasped, some nodding like this made sense, others shifting uncomfortably. "This is crazy," Jamal yelled, his wrists chafing against the restraints. "He slapped me and I'm the one in cuffs?" The college girl finally spoke, her voice small. "That's not fair," she said, but it was swallowed by the murmur of agreement from Roy's row. "Kid's a problem," a man in a baseball cap grunted, his arms crossed. Elias surged to his feet again, his limp dragging as he pushed forward. "You're cuffing the wrong guy," he barked, his accent rough with anger. "That man's the threat." He jabbed a finger at Victor, who leaned back, feigning innocence, his hands spread wide. The tall attendant blocked Elias's path, his radio crackling louder. "Sir, sit down, or you'll be detained too." Elias froze, his fists clenched, his eyes burning into Victor's smug face. Then a third attendant appeared, a wiry woman with a pinched nose, her badge glinting under the lights. She leaned close to Elias, her voice a venomous whisper. "Back off, old man, or I'll have you arrested the second we land. I know Mr. Hensley. He's no trouble." Jamal's gut sank. She knew Victor. Was this a setup? The wiry woman shot, him a glare, her loyalty clear, and Elias retreated, his jaw tight, his hands trembling with suppressed rage. The tall attendant gripped Jamal's arm, steering him toward the rear of the plane, past rows of gawking faces. "Move," he said, his tone clipped, and Jamal stumbled forward, the cuffs biting deeper. The cabin blurred, a sea of judgment and indifference, every step a march to nowhere. They shoved him into seat 32C, a lone spot by the galley, the hum of the engines deafening. The clipboard woman stood guard, her arms folded while the tall one returned to the front, leaving Jamal isolated, trapped, his dreams of Dallas fading under the weight of a lie. Victor's threat echoed in his head. "You'll pay." This was it, the first blow of revenge, twisting a slap into a crime Jamal never committed. His wrists ached, his cheek burned, and his mind spun. How could they believe Roy over him? Why did his skin make him the suspect, not the victim? The plane droned on, the air thick with recycled tension, and Jamal stared at the seat back, his reflection faint in the plastic tray. He'd been taught to stay calm, to outsmart the hate, but this was different. This was a system turning on him, fast and merciless, with Victor pulling strings he couldn't see. The wiry attendant lingered, nearby, her eyes cold, her connection to Victor a silent promise of worse to come. Elias, 10 rows ahead now, twisted to look back, his scarred face a beacon of fury and helplessness. Jamal met his gaze, a flicker of alliance in the dark, but it wasn't enough. Not yet. The plane would land soon. And then what? Victor's smirk, Roy's lie, the cuffs, they were just the start. Jamal's debate finals, his scholarship, his future, all teetered on a razor's edge, and he felt the blade pressing closer, sharper, ready to cut deeper than any slap ever could. Jamal Carter sat shackled in seat 32C, the rear of Flight 819, a lonely prison at 36,000 feet. The hum of the engines a dull roar in his ears. His wrists chafed against the plastic cuffs, his cheek still raw from Victor Hensley's slap, and his damp jeans clung to his thighs, a constant reminder of the spilled water that had sparked this nightmare. The wiry flight attendant with the pinched nose stood guard nearby, her badge glinting faintly, her cold stare pinning him in place like a specimen under glass. Passengers ahead craned their necks, some whispering, others scrolling through the fake video Roy had spread, their judgment a silent weight crushing Jamal's chest. His debate notes, soggy and crumpled, were stuffed back into his backpack, his dreams of Dallas teetering on the edge of ruin. Could he still make it through this? Elias Novak, 10 rows up, twisted in his seat, his scarred face etched with frustration, his pale eyes locked on Jamal with a fierce, unspoken promise. The college girl in 14A clutched her sketchbook, her pencil idle, her earlier murmur of "not fair" echoing in Jamal's mind but offering no shield. The plane droned on, the air thick with tension, every minute stretching into eternity. Then Elias moved. He slipped a pen and a torn scrap of paper from his jacket, scribbling fast, his hand steady despite his limp. He folded it tight and passed it to a middle-aged woman in a floral dress, nodding toward the rear. She hesitated, her eyes darting, to the wiry attendant, then shuffled down the aisle during a bathroom run, her sandals slapping softly. "From the guy up there," she whispered, pressing the note into Jamal's cuffed hands before scurrying back. The attendant's head snapped up, but she missed the exchange, her focus on a passenger's call button. Jamal unfolded it, his pulse quickening. "Write what happened. Truth matters. I'll back you." The words, scrawled in Elias's rough hand, sparked a flicker of hope. Could he fight back with words, not fists? He gripped the pen, his wrists straining, and started jotting his side. The slap, Roy's lie, the cuffs, every detail sharp and His handwriting wobbled, but his mind sharpened, the debater in him waking up. Maybe this wasn't over. Then a new voice cut through the hum. "I saw it all," a woman said, loud enough to turn heads. Lena Morales, a Latina nurse in her 30s, stood in row 28, her scrubs wrinkled from the long flight, her dark hair pulled into a messy bun. She held a medical bag, her stance firm, her brown eyes blazing with conviction. "That man slapped the kid first. The video's fake. I'll swear to it." Passengers murmured, some nodding, others scoffing, but her words hit the crew like a jolt. The tall attendant with the buzz cut approached, his radio silent now, his brow furrowed. "You sure about that, ma'am?" he asked, his tone cautious. Lena crossed her arms. "Dead sure. I was watching the whole time. He's the victim here." Jamal's chest loosened, air rushing in. An ally, a witness, someone who saw the truth. The clipboard woman joined them, her lips thinning as she glanced at Jamal. "If that's true, we've got a problem," she muttered, then keyed her radio. Minutes later, the captain's voice crackled over the intercom, steady and clipped. "Folks, this is Captain Hayes. We've reviewed a passenger complaint. The young man in the rear is to be released from restraints. We'll sort this on the ground." The wiry attendant scowled, her pinched nose flaring, but the tall one uncuffed Jamal, the plastic snapping free with a soft pop. Jamal rubbed his wrists, red welts blooming where the cuffs had bitten, and exhaled, long and shaky. "Thank you," he said to Lena, his voice hoarse. She nodded, a small smile breaking through. Nobody should go through that. Elias caught his eye from up the aisle, a faint nod of approval, and Jamal dared to think he'd turned a corner. Was this the break he needed? The plane began its descent, the Dallas skyline glinting through the windows, and Jamal clutched his note, his resolve hardening. He'd tell his story, clear his name, win that debate. But Victor wasn't done. In row 14, he sat hunched over his tablet, his fingers flying, his smirk a venomous curve. He'd slipped $100 to a skinny kid in row 15, a tech geek, with a laptop and a hoodie whispering, "Make it hurt." The kid grinned, cracked his knuckles, and hacked into Jamal's phone signal, a trick he'd bragged about on forums. He pulled Jamal's debate notes, pristine files synced to the cloud, and twisted them. By the time the plane touched down, the internet exploded. Jamal's project, a brilliant argument on racial equity in law, hit social media, but not as he'd written it. The geek had spliced in slurs, crude edits, and fake quotes, turning it into a racist rant credited to Jamal Carter, debate finalist. Twitter lit up, hashtags trending. Jamal, the racist, cancel him. Jamal stepped off the plane, into Dallas-Fort Worth International, his cuffs gone but his spirit lifting, unaware of the storm brewing online. Elias limped beside him, muttering, "We'll get that bastard," while Lena trailed, texting her husband about the flight. Jamal powered on his phone, expecting a text from his mom, but it buzzed wild, notifications flooding in. His eyes widened. As he scrolled, the blood draining from his face. "What the hell?" he whispered, his notes now a grotesque parody, his name smeared across platforms. A message from his school pinged. "Urgent. Call us. Threats to expel you for misconduct." Then another, anonymous. "Stay out of Dallas, or you're dead." Victor strolled past, briefcase swinging, his grin a knife in Jamal's gut. "Told you'd pay," he said, his voice silk over steel before vanishing into the terminal crowd. Jamal's knees buckled, his backpack slipping to the floor. His debate finals were tomorrow, his scholarship on the line, and now this. Lena grabbed his arm, steadying him, her face paling as she saw the screen. "They can't do this," she said, but her voice wavered. Elias snatched the phone, his scars deepening as he scowled. "They just did. He's hitting you where it hurts most." Jamal's future, his mom's pride, his years of work, all teetered on the edge of a digital abyss. How had Victor pulled this off so fast? The plane's descent had felt like freedom, but it was a trap, a false dawn snuffed out by a blow worse than any slap. His school's threat loomed, expulsion a heartbeat away, and the death threat chilled his bones. Passengers streamed past, some glaring, others oblivious, but the wiry attendant lingered, her smirk mirroring Victor's, her loyalty a silent gloat. Jamal's note, his truth, felt flimsy now, a paper shield against a tidal wave of lies. Elias gripped his shoulder, his voice hard. "We fight this. You hear me?" But Jamal's hope flickered, dimming under the weight of a world that kept finding new ways to break him. The terminal stretched ahead, a battlefield he hadn't signed up for, and Victor's shadow loomed larger, darker, ready to strike again. Jamal Carter stepped off Flight 819 into the sprawling chaos of Dallas-Fort Worth International, his wrists still raw from the cuffs, his cheek tender from Victor Hensley's slap, and his phone buzzing with venomous notifications. The terminal hummed with life, travelers dragging suitcases, voices overlapping in a dull roar, but Jamal felt like he was sinking, the weight of the hacked debate notes dragging him under. His name, smeared online with slurs and lies, echoed in every ping. Jamal the racist. Cancel him. His school's threat to expel him loomed, a death knell to his scholarship dreams, and the anonymous, "Stay out of Dallas, or you're dead," text burned in his mind. Elias Novak limped beside him, his faded jacket scuffed, his scarred face set in a grim line. "We'll fix this, kid," he muttered, his voice rough but steady, a lifeline in the storm. Lena Morales trailed close, her nurse's scrubs wrinkled, her medical bag slung over her shoulder, her eyes darting as if sensing the trouble ahead. Jamal clutched his backpack, his soggy notes inside a fragile shield against a world turning hostile. Could he still make it to the debate finals tomorrow? The cuffs were off, the plane behind him, but freedom felt like a cruel joke. Victor had walked free, detained only briefly after landing, his briefcase swinging as he'd smirked at Jamal in the jetway. Roy, his burly accomplice, had paid the bail, a wad of cash from his flannel pocket, and the two vanished into the crowd, leaving Jamal to face the fallout. Elias guided him toward baggage claim, his limp slowing their pace, his pale eyes scanning the terminal. "Stick close," he said, his tone clipped. "That bastard's not done with you." Lena nodded, her bun bobbing. "He's got pull. I've seen guys like him before. They don't quit." Jamal's stomach nodded, Victor's "you'll pay" ringing in his ears. What did that mean now, on the ground? The terminal stretched wide, glass walls reflecting the late afternoon sun, escalators whirring, but a new sound crept in, low and menacing. Chanting. It started faint, then grew, a rhythmic growl rolling from the arrivals hall. "Keep 'em out! Keep 'em out!" Jamal froze, his sneakers squeaking on the tile as a mob surged into view. 20, maybe 30 men, white faces twisted with rage, clad in trucker hats and leather vests, their fists clenched. White supremacists, Victor's cronies, summoned from Dallas's underbelly. They waved signs scrawled with slurs, their voices a wall of hate aimed straight at Jamal. "There he is!" one shouted, a bald guy with a swastika tattoo pointing, a gnarled finger. "That's the punk from the plane." Jamal's heart slammed against his ribs, his breath catching. How did they know him? The hacked notes, the video, Victor's network. It clicked too late. Elias grabbed his arm, yanking him back. "Move now!" he barked, shoving Jamal toward a side exit, but the mob closed fast, cutting off the path. Lena clutched her bag, her face paling. "Security!" she yelled, but the guards nearby, two lanky guys in gray uniforms, hesitated, their hands hovering over radios, their eyes darting away. The crowd swelled, passengers scattering, some filming, others fleeing. As the mob cornered Jamal near baggage claim, a carousel grinding behind him. "You don't belong here, boy," a wiry man with a goatee snarled, spit flying, his fist raised. Jamal ducked as the punch swung, grazing his ear, the air whooshing past. Elias lunged, his limp forgotten, and tackled the guy, slamming him into a luggage cart with a crash. "Back off!" Elias roared, his voice a thunderclap, but the mob pressed in, boots stomping, fists flying. Lena swung her bag, cracking a guy's jaw, her nurse's calm replaced by fury. But there were too many. A fist caught Elias in the gut, doubling him over, and a boot slammed his ribs, knocking him to his knees with a grunt. Jamal dodged another swing, his backpack slipping, his notes spilling across the floor, trampled under muddy soles. "Help!" he shouted, his voice lost in the chaos, but the security guards stood frozen, one muttering into his radio, the other backing away. Then a cop appeared, a beefy man with a buzz cut and a badge, his hand on his holster, his face hard. Relief flooded Jamal. Help at last, but the cop's eyes slid past him to the mob, then back, cold and calculating. "He's the problem," the bald guy spat, pointing at Jamal. "Started a riot on the plane, now here." The cop nodded, slow and deliberate, his lips curling. "You're under arrest, kid, inciting a disturbance." Jamal's world tilted, his breath hitching. "What? They attacked me!" he yelled, but the cop grabbed his arm, twisting it hard, and slammed him against the carousel, metal digging into his chest. Handcuffs snapped on again, tighter this time, cutting into his welts. Elias struggled up, blood trickling from his lip, and lunged at the cop. "He's innocent, you bastard!" The cop shoved him back, Elias's bad leg buckling, and he hit the floor hard, gasping. Lena screamed, "This is wrong!" But the mob cheered, their chants deafening, drowning her out. Victor emerged from the sidelines, his suit pristine, his grin a slash of triumph, watching as the cop dragged Jamal away. "Told you, kid," he called, his voice silk over venom. "You're done." Jamal's sneakers scraped the tile, his arms pinned, his notes scattered like confetti in a nightmare parade. The terminal spun, faces blurring, passengers staring, some with pity, others with scorn. The cop hauled him to a holding room, a concrete box with a flickering bulb, and shoved him onto a bench, cuffs biting deeper. "Stay put," he growled, slamming the door, leaving Jamal alone, his breath ragged, his mind reeling. How had it flipped so fast? The plane, the slap, the video, now this, a mob and a crooked cop, all Victor's doing. His debate finals were hours away, his mom oblivious in Tacoma, his future slipping through his fingers like sand. Elias was out there, hurt, maybe worse, and Lena couldn't stop this alone. The mob's hate, the cop's bias. It was a machine, grinding him down, and Victor was the gears. Jamal's cheek burned, his wrists ached, and his hope flickered, a candle in a hurricane. He'd thought landing meant escape, but Dallas was a trap, bigger, uglier, deadlier than the plane. Victor's cronies had turned a slap into a war, and Jamal was losing fast. Hey viewers, what's your take? Comment number 1 if you're furious that a mob and a cop can twist justice this bad. Hit like if you're cheering for Jamal to rise up, and subscribe to catch every brutal twist in this fight. Could you stand by while a kid gets framed like that? Or would you jump in like Elias? Stick with us, because the next blow's coming, and it's gonna shake everything Jamal's got left. Will he find a way to strike back, or is Victor's power too deep to crack? Jamal Carter sat on a cold metal bench in the Dallas-Fort Worth International Holding Room, his wrists throbbing from the tight cuffs, his cheek still stinging from Victor Hensley's slap hours ago on Flight 819. The concrete walls closed in, the flickering bulb overhead casting jittery shadows, and the distant rumble of the terminal felt like a world he'd been ripped from. His sneakers stuck to the grimy floor, his backpack confiscated, his soggy debate notes lost in the mob's chaos at baggage claim. The cop's words, inciting a disturbance, echoed in his skull. A lie that pinned him here while Victor walked free. His phone, dead in evidence, couldn't warn his mom or call for help, and the clock ticked toward midnight, his debate finals slipping away. Could he still salvage anything from this? Footsteps clacked outside, and the door swung open. Lena Morales stepped in, her nurse's scrub speckled with dirt from the fight, her dark eyes fierce but tired. "I bailed you out," she said, her voice steady despite the strain. $200 and a lot of arguing. You're clear, for now." Jamal stood, his legs wobbly, relief mixing with dread. "Thank you," he croaked, his throat dry. "Where's Elias?" Lena's jaw tightened. "Outside, banged up but breathing. He's tough as nails." She handed him a water bottle, cool against his palm, and he gulped it down, the sting in his lip flaring. They stepped into the terminal, the air thick with jet fuel and tension, and found Elias Novak leaning against a pillar, his faded jacket torn, a bruise blooming on his jaw. His limp was worse, his scarred face pale, but his pale eyes burned with resolve. "We're not done," he growled, spitting blood onto the tile. "That bastard's got friends, but so do we." Jamal nodded, his chest tightening. Victor's mob, the cop, the hacked notes, it was a machine grinding him down, but Elias and Lena were gears pushing back. Could they really fight this? Elias pulled a crumpled card from his pocket, a lawyer's name scrawled in faded ink. "Old buddy of mine, owes me a favor. He'll take your case." They found a payphone, the terminal's last relic, and Elias dialed, his voice low and urgent. Within an hour, a wiry man in a cheap suit arrived, his glasses smudged, his briefcase battered. "Name's Carl," he said, shaking Jamal's hand with a grip that belied his frame. "Heard what happened. We've got a shot." They filed a complaint against Victor, assault and defamation. Carl's pen flying across forms as Jamal recounted the slap, the video, the mob. Lena signed as a witness, her handwriting sharp, her testimony a lifeline. Elias added his own, his words clipped but damning. By dawn, the story hit the internet, the plane footage going viral, millions of views piling up. Outrage flared, hashtags shifting. "Justice for Jamal. Stop Hensley." Jamal's school called, pausing the expulsion threat, and he dared to hope. Was this his comeback? The debate finals were hours away, and Carl promised to push the case hard. "We've got momentum," he said, adjusting his glasses. "Public pressure's a beast." Jamal exhaled, picturing Victor squirming, his smug grin fading. They grabbed coffee from a kiosk, the bitter taste grounding him, and watched the sunrise through the terminal glass, a faint glow over Dallas. Elias clapped his shoulder, his calloused hand firm. "You're tougher than he thinks, kid," Lena smiled, her bun loosening. "We'll get you to that stage." For a moment, Jamal believed it, his spirit lifting, the weight easing. He'd fight, win, reclaim his future. But Victor wasn't squirming. In a sleek downtown office, he sat with his lawyer, a crooked ex-judge named Harold Vance, his silver hair slicked back, his suit worth more than Jamal's mom's car. Harold smirked over a tumbler of bourbon, flipping through the complaint. "Self-defense," he said, his voice gravelly. "That's our play. Kid provoked you, you reacted. Case closed." Victor leaned back, his Rolex glinting, his grin a predator's bared teeth. "Make it quick," he said, sipping scotch, "and hit him back harder." Harold filed a motion, greased with a bribe to a clerk, and by noon, a judge dismissed Jamal's complaint, citing insufficient evidence despite the viral video. The ruling stung, a slap worse than the first, but Victor wasn't done. He countersued Jamal for defamation, claiming the false accusations had tanked his real estate deals, demanding $50,000, a sum Jamal couldn't dream of paying. The papers landed at Carl's office, a legal gut punch, and Carl's face fell. "This is dirty," he muttered, shoving his glasses up. He's got the system in his pocket. Jamal's hope cracked, the courtroom loss a fresh wound, but the real blow came at dusk. Lena drove them to a motel near the debate venue, her beat-up sedan rattling. Jamal in the back seat clutching his borrowed phone. Elias up front nursing his ribs. They parked, the lot dim under flickering streetlights, and stepped out, the air heavy with Texas heat. Then a roar split the night, tires screeching as a pickup truck roared in, headlights blinding. 4 of Victor's mob cronies leapt out, leather vests gleaming, Molotov cocktails in hand, their faces twisted with hate. "This is for Hensley," the bald one yelled, hurling a bottle at Lena's car. Glass shattered, flames erupted, orange tongues licking the hood, the blast rocking the lot. Jamal stumbled back, heat searing his face, his scream lost in the crackle. Elias tackled him down, shielding him as another bottle flew, exploding near the motel sign, sparks raining. Lena dove behind a dumpster, her bag slipping, her voice shrill. "Call the cops." But Jamal's phone was dead, the battery drained. From the day's chaos, and the motel clerk peeked out, then ducked back, too scared to help. The mob laughed, their boots crunching glass, then peeled out, tires smoking, leaving the car a blazing wreck. Sirens wailed, late and useless, as fire trucks rolled in, hoses blasting, smoke choking the air. Lena's hands shook, her eyes wet, her ride, her lifeline, gone. "My kids," she whispered. "I need that car for them." Jamal's gut twisted, guilt gnawing at him. This was his fault, his fight spilling over. Elias pulled him up, his jacket singed, his voice raw. "There, animals. He's sending a message." The cops arrived, 2 bored officers in wrinkled uniforms, their notepads out but their eyes glazed. "Probably random," one said, shrugging at the wreckage. "No witnesses, no proof." Jamal pointed at the fleeing truck, its taillights fading. "That was them. Victor's guys." The cop smirked, scribbling nothing. "Sure, kid. We'll look into it." They didn't, and Jamal knew it. The system's indifference a brick wall. Carl met them at the scene, his suit rumpled, his face grim. "The lawsuit's real," he said, holding the countersuit papers. "He's got deep pockets and deeper pull. We're outgunned." Jamal's hope shattered, shards cutting deeper, then the glass underfoot. The viral outrage, the complaint, the fight, all crushed under Victor's boot. His school called again, expulsion back on the table, the debate finals a distant dream as smoke curled into the night. Lena hugged her, arms, her car a charred skeleton, her fight fading. Elias spat blood, his fists clenched, but even his fire dimmed. Victor's influence stretched beyond the plane, beyond the mob, into courts and streets, a net tightening around Jamal's throat. Every move they'd made, every stand, buried under a counterattack too big, too fast, too cruel. The motel loomed, a shadow over their defeat, and Jamal felt the blade of Victor's revenge sink deeper, sharper, promising more blood before it was done. Jamal Carter stood in the motel parking lot, the acrid stench of burnt rubber and gasoline stinging his nose, the charred husk of Lena Morales' car smoldering under the Dallas dawn. His wrists ached from cuffs that had bound him twice in 12 hours. His cheek throbbed from Victor Hensley's slap on Flight 819, and his soggy debate notes were ash somewhere in the terminal chaos. The fire trucks had rolled out, leaving puddles and shattered glass, and the cops had shrugged off the Molotov attack, their indifference a slap of its own. Elias Novak limped beside him, his faded jacket singed, a fresh bruise darkening his jaw from the mob's boots, his pale eyes narrowed with fury. Lena clutched her medical bag, her nurse's scrubs torn, her face etched with exhaustion and fear, her voice a whisper. "My kids need me home." Jamal's gut twisted, guilt gnawing. At him, his fight bleeding into their lives. Could he still hold on? Elias spat blood onto the cracked asphalt, his voice gravelly. "Hensley's a coward hiding behind his goons. I've got something on him." He pulled Jamal aside, his calloused hand firm on the teen's shoulder, and lowered his voice. Found a lead last night, called a guy I know. Victor's tied to a hate group, been funding them for years. We can use it. Jamal's pulse quickened, a spark flickering in the dark. Evidence, real proof. Could it turn this around? Carl, their wiry lawyer, nodded from the motel steps, his cheap suit rumpled, his glasses fogged from the heat. If it's solid, we've got a weapon, he said, clutching Victor's defamation countersuit. The $50,000 demand a noose around Jamal's neck. Elias mapped it out, his words clipped. Protest at his office downtown Dallas today. Show the world what he is. By noon, they stood outside Hensley Properties, a glass tower gleaming in the sun, 30 stories of wealth and power. Elias had called in favors, old contacts from his cop days, and a crowd swelled, 50 strong, then 100, signs waving. Stop hate. Justice for Jamal. News vans rolled up, cameras flashing, the viral plane footage looping on screens nationwide. Jamal gripped a megaphone Carl had scrounged, his hands trembling, but his voice steady, the debater in him rising. Victor Hensley assaulted me, framed, me sent a mob after me. He funds hate and I've got proof. This isn't just my fight, it's ours. The crowd roared, fist pumping, a tide of support washing over him. His school texted, pausing the expulsion again, and the debate finals loomed tonight. A faint lifeline. Was this his stand? His victory? Elias clapped his back, his scarred face splitting into a rare grin. You're a natural, kid. Lena stood firm, her bun tight again, her eyes bright. We're with you. For an hour it held, the protest a thunderclap shaking Victor's empire, his name trending with Har Hensley exposed. Jamal dared to breathe, the weight lifting, his future flickering back into view. But the tide turned fast. Inside the tower, Victor paced, his Rolex ticking, his blonde hair mussed, his lawyer Harold Vance sipping bourbon at his desk. They've got nothing, Harold sneered, but Victor's grin was ice. Shut it down. He dialed a number, his voice low. Threaten the nurse. Hard. Across town, Lena's phone buzzed, a blocked caller hissing, "Back off, or your kids don't make it home from school." Her face drained, her hands shaking as she showed Elias the text, her resolve cracking. "I can't," she whispered, tears welling. "I've got 2 girls, 8 and 10. By 3, she stood before a camera, her scrubs swapped for a blouse, her voice trembling on live TV. "Jamal's unstable, caused trouble on the plane. I was wrong to back him." The words stabbed Jamal, a blade through his chest, the crowd thinning as doubt spread. "Lena, why?" he croaked, but she wouldn't meet his eyes, fleeing into a cab, her bag clutched tight. The protest fizzled, reporters packing up, the momentum gone. Could she really turn like that? Elias cursed, kicking a curb, his limp worsening. "She's scared. Not a traitor," he said, but it didn't soften the blow. Night fell, and Victor's next move landed. Jamal and Elias trudged through an alley near the motel, the protest's ashes still smoldering in their minds, when boots echoed behind them. 4 of Victor's cronies emerged, leather vests gleaming, steel pipes in hand, the bald one with the swastika tattoo grinning. "Boss says hi," he snarled, swinging fast. Jamal ducked, the pipe whistling past his ear, but Elias took the brunt, a blow cracking his ribs, another smashing his knee. He crumpled, blood pooling under him, his groan ragged as they beat him senseless, pipes thudding like drums. Jamal lunged, shoving the bald guy back, but a fist caught his jaw, stars bursting in his vision. "You're next, kid," a goon hissed, dropping a note by Elias's limp form before they bolted, tires squealing in the distance. Jamal crawled to Elias, his hands shaking, blood slick on his fingers as he pressed the old man's jacket to his chest. "Hold on," he begged, his voice breaking, but Elias's eyes fluttered, his breath shallow. The note read, "You're next," in jagged ink, Victor's promise seeping through. Sirens wailed, late again, and paramedics hauled Elias away, his pulse faint, his fight fading. Jamal sat alone, the alley cold, his jaw swelling, his last ally gone. His phone buzzed, the school's final call. Expelled, safety concerns. The debate final started in an hour. But he had no ride, no notes, no chance. Victor's goons had crushed his protest, Lena's betrayal had gutted his support, and now Elias was down, maybe dying. How had it unraveled so fast? The tower loomed. In his mind, Victor's grin a specter over Dallas. His hate group ties a shadow Jamal couldn't outrun. A cop rolled by, headlights sweeping, and Jamal flinched, expecting cuffs. But the officer smirked and drove on, another thread in Victor's web. His school was gone, his mom's pride shattered, his future a blank slate smeared with blood and ash. Lena's kids, Elias's scars. They'd paid for his fight and he'd lost anyway. Alone in the dark, Jamal felt the walls close in, Victor's power a mountain he couldn't climb. The motel waited, a hollow refuge, but the note burned in. His pocket, a vow of more pain, more loss. Every step he'd taken, every word he'd spoken, buried under a counterattack too vast, too cruel, too final. The alley stretched empty, Elias's blood a stain on the ground, and Jamal's spirit, cracked, a 16-year-old kid against a machine that wouldn't stop, couldn't stop until he was nothing. Jamal Carter crouched in the dim alley, his sneakers crunching on broken glass, the coppery tang of Elias Novak's blood still clinging to his hands. The Dallas night pressed in, thick with heat and the distant wail of sirens, the motel's neon sign flickering a block away. His jaw ached from the goon's punch, his wrists bore welts from cuffs, and his cheek pulsed with the memory of Victor Hensley's slap on Flight 819, now hours past but a lifetime ago. Elias lay in an ambulance, his ribs cracked, his knee shattered, his faded jacket soaked red, whisked away by paramedics who wouldn't meet Jamal's eyes. Lena Morales was gone, her betrayal a knife in his gut, her televised lie. Jamal's unstable, echoing in his mind. His school had expelled him, his debate finals were dust, and Victor's note, "You're next," burned in his pocket. A vow of more pain. Could he still fight, with nothing left? Alone, 16 and hunted, Jamal stumbled to the motel, a crumbling two-story dive with peeling paint and a buzzing vending machine. He used Carl's last $20 to rent a room, a dank box with a sagging bed and a cracked window, the hum of the AC a faint comfort. His borrowed phone, scavenged from Elias's jacket, buzzed faintly, its battery at 10%, but he ignored it, sinking onto the mattress, his head in his hands. His mom's face flashed, her pride in his debate dreams now a ghost, and he choked back a sob. Then he straightened, his debater's mind kicking in, sharp despite the haze. Victor wanted him broken, silent, gone, but Jamal wasn't done. Could words still be his weapon? He powered on the phone, the screen flickering, and opened the camera, his reflection a bruised shadow, his eyes fierce. "My name's Jamal Carter," he said, voice steady despite the tremor in his chest. "Victor Hensley slapped me on a plane, framed me with lies, sent a mob to kill me. He funds a hate group, and I've got proof Elias Novak dug up. This is the truth." He uploaded it to YouTube, his fingers shaking, the signal weak but enough, and titled it, "Victor Hensley Exposed." By morning it spread, 10,000 views, then 50, comments flooding. "This kid's a hero. Hensley's a monster." A local news station, Channel 9, called, a producer's voice crackling through the motel's landline. "Saw your video, Jamal. Come on air tonight, 8 o'clock. Tell your story." Jamal's pulse raced, a lifeline in the dark. Could this turn it all around? He showered, the hot water stinging his bruises, and pulled on his last clean shirt. A wrinkled tee from his backpack, the debate logo faded but proud. Carl met him outside, his cheap suit sweat-stained, his glasses slipping. "Elias is stable, barely," he said, his voice low. "I'll drive you." They rolled into downtown Dallas, the Channel 9 studio, a squat brick building, its antenna piercing the dusk. Inside, a harried producer with a headset ushered Jamal to a green room, a mirror showing his swollen jaw, his split lip, a kid who'd aged a decade in a day. At 8, he sat under blazing lights, a mic clipped to his collar, facing a reporter, named Tara, her blonde bob crisp, her blue eyes sharp. "Jamal, tell us what happened," she said, her tone warm but probing. He took a breath, the camera's red dot a challenge, and spilled it all. The slap, the cuffs, the mob, The firebombing. Elias's proof. His voice rising with every word. A debater's fire burning through the pain. Victor Hensley's a racist with blood on his hands, he finished, his fists clenched. The control room buzzed, phones lighting up, viewers texting, he's telling the truth. Jamal felt it, the tide shifting, his story cutting through Victor's lies. Was this his moment? Then the studio doors crashed open, glass shattering, shouts erupting. 5 of Victor's cronies stormed in, leather vests glinting, pipes and bats swinging. The bald one with the swastika tattoo roaring, "Shut him up!" Tara screamed, diving under the desk, the camera toppling with a crack. Jamal leapt back, his chair clattering, but they were fast, feral, their boots pounding the floor. A pipe slammed his shoulder, pain exploding, and a bat cracked his ribs, a sickening snap stealing his breath. He hit the ground, curling tight, fists pounding his back, his legs, blood pooling in his mouth as he choked. "Stop!" The producer yelled into a radio, "Call the cops!" But the goons smashed the console, sparks flying, the live feed cutting to static. Outside, 2 squad cars idled, their lights off, officers leaning against hoods, smoking, their smirks visible through the shattered window, doing nothing. Victor stepped in, his suit pristine, his Rolex ticking, a phone in hand filming the carnage, his grin a slash of glee. "This is what happens to troublemakers," he said, his voice silk over steel, streaming it live to his own twisted followers, thousands watching Jamal break. A boot slammed Jamal's head, stars bursting and his vision blurred, the room spinning, his fight fading. The goons dragged him outside, the night air cold on his bloodied face, and dumped him in an alley, pipes clattering as they fled, tires squealing. Jamal lay there, ribs screaming, blood dripping onto concrete, his spirit cracking under the weight. How had his truth turned to this? Sirens wailed, too late, paramedics lifting him onto a stretcher, their hands gentle, but their faces grim. "He's bad," one muttered, strapping an oxygen mask over his mouth, the hiss a faint lifeline. The studio smoldered, equipment trashed, Tara shaken but alive. The broadcast a ghost online, viewers raging but powerless. Victor's feed looped, his taunt a viral wound, Jamal's beating a trophy for his hate. The ambulance rolled, the city, blurring past, and Jamal's mind fogged, his mom's voice a distant echo. "You're gonna show him." He'd tried and failed, every punch a hammer on his soul. Elias was down, Lena gone, Carl outmatched, and now this, a public breaking, his bones and his will shattered. The hospital loomed, a white blur, and he drifted, Victor's grin the last thing he saw, a promise of more, worse, endless. Hey viewers, what's your gut saying? Comment number 1. If you're boiling that cops just watched Jamal get wrecked. Hit like if you're still rooting for this kid to rise from the ashes, and subscribe to see if he can claw back from this hell. Could you keep fighting after a beating like that? Or would you break too? Stick around, because the next hit's coming fast, and it's gonna test everything Jamal's got left. Can he find one last spark? Or is Victor's grip too tight to shake? Jamal Carter lay crumpled in the alley, his ribs screaming from the studio beating, blood crusting on his lips, the Dallas night a cold shroud around him. His tee clung to his battered frame, the debate logo a faint mockery of the finals he'd missed, his cheek still raw from Victor Hensley's slap on Flight 819. Now a distant spark in this inferno. The ambulance had come and gone, paramedics too late to shield him from the mob's pipes and Victor's live-streamed gloat, leaving him discarded like trash. His borrowed phone lay shattered beside him, its screen dark, his viral expose a ghost in the ether. Footsteps crunched, slow and uneven, and a shadow loomed. Elias Novak, his faded jacket torn, his face a map of bruises, his limp dragging worse than ever. Blood seeped from a gash on his forehead, his ribs taped from the hospital, but his pale eyes burned with a fire that hadn't died. "Get up, kid," he rasped, his voice a lifeline, and hauled Jamal to his feet, pain jolting through every bone. Could he still stand with Elias? Elias half-carried him, his calloused arms strong despite the wounds, to a safe house, a crumbling shack on Dallas's edge, its windows boarded, its roof sagging. Inside, a single bulb buzzed, casting light on a cot, a sink, and a battered table, the air thick with dust and desperation. "You're not safe anywhere else," Elias said, easing Jamal onto the cot, his breath ragged. He pulled a first aid kit from his jacket, cracked it open, and cleaned Jamal's cuts, his hands steady despite the tremble. "They hit me hard, but I crawled out. Couldn't leave you to them." Jamal winced as antiseptic stung, his ribs a cage of fire, but Elias's grit fueled him, a flicker of fight rekindling. "What now?" he croaked, his throat raw. Elias's jaw tightened, his scars deepening. "We hit back, harder." He'd called a contact, a sympathetic reporter named Grace, a wiry woman with gray streaks in her hair, who'd slipped past hospital security to meet him. She arrived at dawn, her notepad worn, her recorder humming, her eyes sharp with outrage. "Your video's everywhere," she said, setting up on the table. "Millions saw it before the feed cut. I've got the mob footage too, caught it from a bystander. Let's air it." Jamal nodded, his pulse quickening, a chance to reclaim his voice. Could the truth still cut through? Grace filmed him, his bruised face a testament, his words slow but fierce, recounting the slap, the cuffs, the mob, the studio, Victor's hate, group ties Elias had unearthed. "He's trying to kill me," he said, his fists clenched. "But I'm still here." She aired it that night on Channel 12, a raw cut that hit the airwaves like a bomb, the mob's pipes flashing. Victor's grin a damning frame. The nation erupted, protests flaring in Dallas, Seattle, beyond. Chants of justice for Jamal, shaking streets, trending tags burying Victor's lies. Jamal fights back. And Hensley. By morning, Hensley Properties fired Victor, a press release, citing conduct unbecoming, his office tower a ghost town, his stock plummeting. Jamal watched it unfold on Grace's laptop, the shack's walls trembling with hope. His expulsion paused again, his mom texting, "I'm proud, baby." Elias grinned, his teeth blood-streaked, clapping Jamal's shoulder. "You did it, kid. He's down." Jamal exhaled, his ribs aching but his spirit soaring. Was this the win he'd bled for? For a day it held, the world on his side, Victor's empire cracking, his smirk erased from screens. Grace stayed, her recorder rolling, digging deeper into Elias's proof. Bank records linking Victor to hate funds, a story that could bury him for good. Jamal dared to dream, his debate finals rescheduled, a scholarship still in reach, the nightmare fading. But Victor wasn't down, he was coiled, a snake in the shadows. In a penthouse across town, his suit rumpled, his Rolex ticking, he paced, his blonde hair wild, his lawyer Harold Vance gone, his cronies scattered. He dialed a new number, a hitman named Klein, a lean killer with dead eyes and a silenced pistol, his voice ice. "Frame the kid, drugs, make it stick, then finish him." Victor wired $100,000, his grin returning, sharper, deadlier. Klein moved fast, planting a kilo of cocaine in the shack's crawlspace, tipping a crooked cop with a fat envelope. That night, as Jamal slept, his ribs bandaged, Elias dozing in a chair, the door splintered, boots crashing in. 6 cops stormed the safe house, badges glinting, guns drawn, the lead a hulking man with a shaved head, his smirk a mirror of Victor's. "Drug bust," he barked, slamming Jamal awake, yanking him to the floor, cuffs snapping tight, his welts tearing open. Elias lunged, his bad leg buckling, and tackled the lead cop, fists flying, but a baton cracked his shin, a sickening crunch, blood pooling as he screamed, "He's clean!" The cops ignored him, dragging Jamal outside, the shack's bulb swinging, Grace's laptop smashed under a boot. They found the coke, a baggie waved like a trophy, the lead cop grinning. "Trafficking, kid. You're done." Jamal's head spun, his voice lost, his ribs agony as they shoved him into a squad car, the door slamming, the night swallowing him. Elias crawled, his leg useless, shouting, "It's a setup!" But a cop kicked him down, his head cracking pavement, his fight snuffed out. Grace hid in the shadows, her recorder rolling, but her footage wouldn't save them now. The radio crackled, Victor's voice hacking through a distorted laugh. "You'll never outrun me," he taunted. The the signal cutting as the car peeled out. Jamal's victory dissolved. A mirage in a blood-soaked trap, the protests fading, the world flipping again. The station loomed, a gray fortress, and they hauled him in, his cuffs clanking, his body a map of pain, his hope a memory. The cops smirked, their lies a wall, Victor's frame-up a noose tightening fast. Elias bled out back, Grace powerless, and Jamal's last stand crumbled, every punch, every word, drowned in a setup he couldn't outsmart. The cell waited, cold and final, and Victor's shadow stretched longer, darker, a beast that wouldn't die. Jamal Carter sat in a Dallas jail cell, the steel bench icy against his bruised thighs, his ribs a throbbing cage from the studio beating, his wrists raw from cuffs that had become his shadow. The concrete walls reeked of bleach and despair, a single bulb buzzing overhead, casting a sickly glow on his swollen jaw, his split lip crusted with blood from Victor Hensley's reign of terror that began with a slap on Flight 8119. His tee hung in tatters, the debate logo a ghost of his lost finals. His borrowed phone gone, smashed in the safehouse raid. Elias Novak lay in a hospital, his legs shot, his ribs cracked, unable to testify. His fight stolen by Victor's goons. The kilo of planted cocaine loomed, a frame-up sealing Jamal's fate. The cop's smirks a wall he couldn't breach. Could he still escape this? The cell door clanged, a guard with a lazy eye tossing him a jumpsuit, orange and stiff, his voice a grunt. Court tomorrow, move it. Jamal pulled it on, the fabric scratching his welts, his mind racing, the debater in him clawing for a plan. Grace, the reporter, had vanished after the raid, her footage a faint hope he couldn't reach, and Carl, his lawyer, was outmatched, his calls unanswered. The trial came fast, a courthouse of polished wood and cold marble, the judge a gray-haired man with a hawkish nose, his robe crisp, his eyes dead. Victor's lawyer, Harold Vance, strutted in, silver hair gleaming, his suit $1,000 of corruption, his grin a blade. Jamal stood in the dock, cuffs off but chains in his soul. Carl beside him, glasses fogged, papers trembling. The prosecution laid it out. The planted coke a slam dunk, the lead cop testifying, found it in his hideout, clear intent to sell. Jamal shouted, "It's a lie." But the gavel cracked, the judge's voice ice. "Order, or you're out." Harold smirked, bribing the clerk with a wink and a roll of bills, evidence vanishing, witnesses silent, the mob footage lost in a glitch. Carl fought, his voice thin. No chain of custody, no proof. But the judge yawned, his ruling, a script. "Guilty," he said. No deliberation, no doubt. Sentencing looming, life in prison a breath away. Jamal's knees buckled, the room spinning. His mom's pride, his future, crushed under a gavel's weight. Was this the end? Then, a crack opened. A guard, a young black man with a buzz cut and a quiet gaze, slipped him a key in the night. His whisper low, "Saw your video, kid. You don't belong here." Jamal's heart slammed, the key cold in his palm. A chance born of guilt or justice. He didn't care. At dawn, as the cell block slept, he unlocked the door, the hinges creaking, his sneakers silent on concrete. He slipped past snoring guards, his ribs screaming with every step, and bolted into the Dallas streets, the air sharp with freedom, his breath ragged. He had one shot, one move, Victor's confession, the truth to end this. Could he pull it off? He ran, the city a blur of neon and shadow, his jumpsuit swapped for a hoodie scavenged from a dumpster, his face a bruised mask. Victor's mansion loomed on a hill, a fortress of glass and stone, its lights blazing, a king in his lair. Jamal climbed a fence, thorns snagging his skin, and crept to a window, peering in. Victor pacing, scotch in hand, his Rolex ticking, his blonde hair wild. Jamal powered on a burner phone, a cheap flip from a gas station, and hit record, his voice a whisper. "Tell me, Hensley. Say it." He tapped the glass, Victor spinning, his eyes narrowing, then widening as Jamal stepped into view. A ghost in the dark. "You," Victor snarled, flinging the door open, his grin twisting. "Still kicking, huh?" Jamal held the phone steady, his ribs afire he ignored. Admit it. The hate group, the SLAP, the drugs, all of it. Victor laughed, a jagged sound, and leaned close, his breath sour. Fine, kid. I fund 'em, I hit you, I framed you, what's it matter? You're nothing. The words sank in. Gold on tape, Jamal's heart pounding. A weapon at last. Could this save him? But Victor's grin widened, his hand slipping to his pocket, a phone buzzing, a trap sprung. Sirens wailed, close and fast. Cop cars roaring up the drive, lights flashing, boots hitting gravel. You planned this, Jamal hissed, backing away. But Victor lunged, his fist grazing Jamal's jaw, a glancing blow. Always one step ahead, he sneered, as cops swarmed, their badges glinting, the lead from the raid grinning wide. Assaulting. Mr. Hensley, he barked, slamming Jamal to the ground, his knee on Jamal's spine, cuffs snapping tight, the burner phone yanked away, smashed under a boot, the confession gone. They beat him, fists and batons raining, his ribs cracking anew, blood pooling on the lawn, his screams lost in the night. Victor watched, filming again, his laugh a blade. You're finished. His voice silk over venom, the live feed streaming, to his twisted horde. Jamal's vision blurred, pain a tide pulling him under, the cops dragging him back to the squad car, the mansion fading, his last stand a pile of ash. The station swallowed him again, the cell colder, darker, his body a wreck, his spirit a whisper. Victor's setup had won, the confession lost, the judge bought, the system his. Elias couldn't help, Grace couldn't reach, and Jamal's fight, every ounce of it drowned in a trap too deep, too cruel, too final. Jamal Carter woke in a Dallas hospital, his body a roadmap of pain, cuffed to a bed with steel rails that bit into his raw wrists. His ribs throbbed, cracked from the studio beating, and the cops' batons at Victor Hensley's mansion. His jaw, swollen, his lips split, the slap from Flight 819 a faint echo under fresher wounds. The orange jumpsuit clung to him, sweat-soaked and stiff. The debate logo on his lost tee a memory of finals he'd never reach. Tubes snaked from his arm, a monitor beeping slow, the sterile air thick with antiseptic and despair. His confession, recorded on that burner phone, was dust, smashed by Victor's cronies, his last stand a mirage. Elias Novak lay crippled in another ward, his legs shattered, his fight stolen, and Grace, the reporter, was a ghost, her footage useless against Victor's web. Could anything pull him back from this? A cop loomed in the doorway, the lead from the raid, his shaved head gleaming, his smirk a permanent scar. Life sentence coming, kid, he said, twirling his baton, his voice a taunt. Trafficking, assault, you're cooked. Jamal's throat closed, his breath shallow, the planted coke and rigged trial a noose he couldn't slip. Victor had won, his frame-up airtight, his bribe to the judge a lock on Jamal's fate. Then Victor himself strolled in, his suit crisp, despite the late hour, his Rolex ticking, his blonde hair slicked back, his grin a blade of triumph. He leaned close, his breath sour with scotch, his eyes glinting. I own this city, he whispered, his voice silk over venom. And you're nothing but a stain I'm wiping clean. Jamal glared, his fists clenching despite the cuffs, his voice a rasp. You'll pay someday. Victor laughed, a jagged sound, and patted Jamal's bruised cheek, the sting a fresh cut. Not in your lifetime, kid. He sauntered out, his shadow stretching long, his power a mountain Jamal couldn't climb. The news flickered on a wall-mounted TV, the volume low but the headline screaming, Jamal Carter, teen criminal caught in drug bust. The mob footage gone, replaced by Victor's lies, the public swallowing it whole. His school's expulsion was final, his mom's texts unanswered, his phone lost in the chaos. Was this really it? Hours bled into days, the hospital a limbo of pain and silence, nurses moving like shadows, their eyes avoiding his, the cuffs a constant weight. His mind replayed every blow, the slap, the cuffs, the mob, the studio, the raid, the mansion, a spiral of hate he couldn't outrun. His mom's voice, "You're gonna show him," faded, her pride a casualty he couldn't save. Then the final blow landed. A nurse, A young woman with braids and a tight frown slipped him a newspaper, her whisper urgent. "Your family's in trouble." The headline hit like a fist. Tacoma home torched in suspected arson. His mom's house, a modest bungalow, where he'd grown up, was ash. The photo showing flames licking the roof, windows blown out. The porch where she'd hugged him goodbye a charred ruin. The article speculated retaliation for Jamal's crimes. Victor's mob cronies named as suspects. No arrests made. His mom was safe, staying with a neighbor, but homeless. Her savings gone, her life upended. Jamal's chest caved, a sob breaking free, the cuffs rattling as he shook, his ribs screaming. "No," he whispered, the paper crumpling in his hands, tears blurring the ink. His fight had burned her world too. Victor's reach stretching 1,000 miles to crush her. How could he face her now? The nurse lingered, her hand hovering, but she said nothing, slipping out as a doctor barked her name. Jamal stared at the ceiling, the beep of the monitor a dirge, his spirit splintering. Elias couldn't reach him. His hospital bed a prison of its own, his leg useless, his voice silenced. Grace's last text, "I'm trying," was days old. Her efforts drowned in Victor's tide. Carl, the lawyer, had vanished. His cheap suit no match for Harold Vance's corruption. The countersuit's $50,000 a ghost debt Jamal couldn't pay. The debate finals had crowned a winner, some kid from Houston. His scholarship dreams dust in Tacoma's ashes. Every ally, every hope, torched like his mom's house. Victor's grin the flame that lit it all. The news looped, pundits calling him a thug, a danger. The viral outrage flipped to scorn, the world turning its back. His ribs ached, his wrists bled, and his mind broke. A 16-year-old kid against a machine too vast, too cruel. Could he even dream of fighting anymore? The hospital window showed a gray dawn, Dallas sprawling indifferent beyond, its streets a battlefield he'd lost. Victor's voice echoed, "I own this city," a truth carved in every bruise, every loss. The cuffs clanked as he shifted, the chain a metaphor for his life, bound, beaten, buried. His mom's home, her hugs, her belief, gone, a casualty of his stand, and he couldn't call, couldn't face her shame. Elias's blood, Lena's tears, Grace's risk, all for nothing, a fight that only fed Victor's beast. The judge's gavel loomed, life in prison a shadow closing in, the planted. Drugs a lie no one would unravel, Jamal whispered. "I give up." His voice a ghost, the words sinking into the sterile air. His fire snuffed out. The monitor beeped, steady and slow, a countdown to nothing. His spirit a husk, Victor's power absolute. The hospital hummed, a machine of its own, and Jamal drifted, his eyes closing, darkness a mercy he craved. Every punch, every stand, every word, wiped out. A kid who dared to rise now a footnote in Victor's victory, the world blind to his truth, deaf to his screams. Jamal Carter lay shackled to the hospital bed, the cuffs a cold vice on his raw wrists, his ribs a throbbing cage of pain from beatings that stretched back to the studio, the safe house, and Victor Hensley's mansion. The sterile room hummed, the monitors beep a slow dirge, his orange jumpsuit soaked with sweat, the faint scar from Victor's slap on Flight 819, a cruel footnote under fresher wounds. His jaw ached, his lip crusted with blood, his eyes hollow from days of despair, the news branding him a criminal, his mom's Tacoma home torched, Elias Novak crippled, and his debate dreams ash. Victor's gloat, "I own this city," echoed, a truth carved in every bruise, every loss. His frame-up of drugs and assault sealing a life sentence Jamal couldn't escape. The gray dawn seeped through the window, Dallas sprawling indifferent, beyond, and Jamal's whisper, "I give up," hung in the air, his spirit a husk, broken by a machine too vast, too cruel. Could anything pierce this darkness? In a ward across town, Elias Novak lay dying, his leg a shattered ruin from the safe house raid, his ribs taped, his breath a rattle under the weight of Victor's goons' pipes, tubes snaked from his arms, machines whirring, his faded jacket folded on a chair, bloodstains a map of his fight. At 58, he'd lived hard, a retired cop turned carpenter, his scars a testament to battles won and lost. But this was different, a debt he couldn't outrun. His pale eyes fluttered, his mind sharp despite the morphine haze, replaying Jamal's face, the kid he'd pulled from alleys and mobs, a mirror to a promise he'd broken 40 years ago. He'd mailed a package from his hospital bed, a desperate move, his last. A hidden recording slipped to a nurse with a shaky, "Get this to the FBI now." It was all he had left, a lifeline he wouldn't live to see land. Was it enough? The recording, a grainy audio from a device he'd stashed in Victor's office during the protest chaos, captured Hensley's voice, cold and clear, bragging to Harold Vance about his hate group empire. "I've got 'em armed to the teeth, ready to clean this city of filth like that Carter kid." It named dates, deals, a network stretching from Dallas to Tacoma, a blueprint of hate Elias had risked everything to snag. He'd kept it secret, a final card, knowing Victor's reach could snatch it away. But now, with 4 months to live, from a cancer he'd hidden, he played it, his breath fading as the nurse ran. The hospital clock ticked, his pulse weakening, his fight for Jamal his last breath, a redemption he'd die for. Could it reach the right hands? Back in Jamal's ward, the door creaked, a doctor in a white coat checking charts, oblivious to the storm brewing beyond the walls. Jamal stared at the ceiling, his mom's charred porch flashing, her voice a ghost. "You're gonna show him." A promise he'd failed, her home lost to his fight. The cuffs clanked as he shifted, his ribs a fire he couldn't quench, his surrender a weight he couldn't lift. Then the TV flared, a news break cutting through the silence, Channel 9's logo blazing, Tara's blonde bob trembling as she spoke. "Breaking news. FBI agents have raided Hensley Properties, arresting Victor Hensley on charges of racketeering, hate crimes, and evidence tampering, linked to an audio leaked hours ago." Jamal's head snapped up, his breath catching, the screen flashing to Victor in cuffs, his suit rumpled, his blonde hair wild, his grin gone, screaming threats as agents hauled him away. "This is a setup," he roared. But the footage cut to the recording, Victor's voice damning. "Clean this city of filth." A confession that matched Jamal's, lost, but now reborn. How had this happened? The hospital buzzed, nurses whispering, a guard unlocking Jamal's cuffs with a grunt. "You're free, kid," his lazy eye wide with shock. Jamal sat up, his ribs screaming, his mind reeling, the room tilting as freedom hit. A tide he couldn't grasp. The news looped, live from the courthouse. The judge's gavel slamming, charges dropped, the planted coke exposed, the trial a sham unmasked by Elias's tape. Crowds cheered outside, justice for Jamal ringing, protesters swarming, a wave that drowned Victor's lies. Jamal stumbled to his feet, the jumpsuit peeling off, a nurse handing him jeans and a hoodie, her braids swinging as she said, "Your mom's on her way." His chest tightened, tears pricking, hope a stranger he barely recognized. Was this real? Agents stormed Victor's empire, his office a crime scene, files seized, his hate group crumbling, cronies turning on him, Harold Vance cuffed in a backroom deal gone sour. The broadcast cut to Tara, her voice steady. The audio came from an anonymous source, believed to be Elias Novak, a hero who died this morning giving his life to expose Hensley. Jamal froze, his knees buckling. Elias gone, his scarred face a memory, his last stand a gift that broke the beast. The hospital ward blurred, a doctor rushing in. "You're clear to go." But Jamal's mind spun, a bigger twist sinking in. A nurse handed him a letter, Elias's handwriting shaky. "Kid, you're my nephew, James Carter's grandson, my brother who saved me in Nam. I owed him this." Jamal's breath hitched. His mom's dad, a soldier he'd never met. A secret. Elias carried a blood tie that bound them on that plane, a convergence 40 years in the making. Could this be true? The pieces clicked, Elias's fury, his rise. Not this time. A vow to a brother he'd failed. A silence that cost James his peace, now redeemed in Jamal's fight. Victor's cuffs tightened on screen, his empire ash. His live feeds a noose, the world seeing him for the monster he was, Jamal's truth roaring back louder, fiercer. He stepped into the hall, his ribs a dull ache, his mom bursting through, her arms wrapping him, her sobs a balm. "I knew you'd make it." The crowd outside swelled, chants shaking the glass, his name a beacon, his scars a testament to a war he'd won, not chosen. Victor's cell waited, his threats hollow, his power dust. But Elias's grave loomed, a cost Jamal couldn't repay, a hero who died to lift him up. The hospital doors opened, Dallas air sharp, his mom's hand firm, and Jamal vowed to rebuild. His mom's home, his dreams, a law school future forged in this fire, a legacy of James and Elias he'd carry, a 16-year-old kid who'd faced a titan and stood. The city stretched ahead, a battlefield scarred but his, Victor's shadow fading, the arc bending, finally, toward justice. Jamal Carter's journey in racist man slaps black kid mid-flight. Seconds later, a stranger stands up and changes everything, is a raw testament to resilience against racial injustice. The first lesson is the power of perseverance. Despite relentless attacks, Victor's slap, the mob, the frame-ups, Jamal never fully surrendered until the brink, his spirit a flicker that Elias's sacrifice reignited. It shows that even when the world turns against you, holding on to your truth can spark change. Second, the story exposes systemic racism's depth, from biased cops to rigged courts, a machine that nearly crushed Jamal, teaching us that individual courage alone isn't enough. Collective action and allies like Elias and Grace are vital to dismantle it. Third, it underscores the cost of justice. Elias gave his life, Jamal's mom lost her home, a reminder that fighting hate extracts a heavy toll, yet the victory over Victor proves it's worth it. Finally, the twist of Elias as Jamal's uncle reveals how past debts and family ties can fuel present battles, urging us to honor those who paved our way by standing up today. This isn't just a tale of pain, it's a call to recognize our own power to resist, to speak, to act. What about you? How would you fight back if racism targeted you or someone you love? Drop a comment with your thoughts, hit like if Jamal's grit moved you, and subscribe for more tales of defiance against the odds. Share this story to spark conversations about justice in your circle. Thanks for joining us on this roller coaster. It's your support that keeps these stories alive. Here's to a world where truth wins every single time.